You left a year ago to search for a cure for my affliction. An island in the middle of the Pacific that the locals refuse to even name. Your letters kept me close to you. But suddenly they stopped coming. What happened, Opal? What did you find?
Hey folks, and welcome to a very, very special live stream. We're doing something today that we've never done on this channel, and I think it's going to be one of the most fun streams we've ever done. It is my absolute honor to present 4 very special guests today. Quick, I'm Liam, producer here at Raw Fury. I'm not important for this stream. I'm just here to get things kicked off, and then we're going to talk about some cool stuff. But with me today are 4 people. First of all, Tatiana Delgado, creative director for Call of the Sea. That's right. That is your title, right? I'm not getting titles wrong here, am I?
Yes, it's correct.
Hello, Tatiana.
Hello.
Thank you for joining. We also have Julian Kwasniewski, the voice director for Call of the Sea, right out of Bay Area Sound. Hello, Julian.
Hello.
We have Cissy Jones, voice of Norah in Call of the Sea, and you may know her from a bunch of very fantastic video games. And we also have Yuri Lowenthal, voice actor for Harry. You may also know the guy from a lot of other stuff. And they are cosplaying the characters. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy about that. But before we dive into what we're going to do here today, why don't we just do some quick introductions from your side? And maybe I'd like to ask everybody, except Tatiana, because you know we know your story of how you got into Call of the Sea. But I'd like to ask Julian, how did you get on board this crazy journey for Call of the Sea?
I have to thank Cissy. She talked to Susie, and I've worked with Cissy for a long time on a number of projects, and it just kind of fell together. And I was lucky enough to get to work with these two again.
Fantastic. Cissy, how about you? You mentioned, well, Julian mentioned you'd been talking to Susie, our brand manager for the game. How'd that all come about?
Yeah, it was right after PAX East earlier this year, in the before times when we could actually, see people. Susie gave me a call, and she mentioned that she was working on this incredible game by an incredible female creative director about an incredible female protagonist who, goes on this journey to save her husband. And I was like, okay, I'm in. What? I don't need to know anything else. So I jumped in. I was so excited, and I am so excited for it to finally come out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Cissy. And what about you, Yuri? When was the first moment you heard about the game and decided to come on board?
Common refrain. Much like Julian just said, I owe Cissy for bringing me into this one. She reached out and said, "Hey, I'm involved in this project, and I would like you involved." And that I was like, "Okay, I've heard all I need to know. If you're doing it, then I would love to work with you." And then it just so happened that it also turned out to be an amazing team working on an amazing game. So I really lucked out on this one.
We are the lucky ones. Come on. But fantastic. Yeah. So great to have you all here. We are going to, as I mentioned, do something today, which I guess we've kind of given it away in the title of the stream. We are going to be doing a live performance of the prequel story for Call of the Sea. Julian, do you want to give folks a kind of teaser? Like, what are we about to see here today?
Just a lot of fighting and arguing, and
as usual.
I have to say, working with these two is you're gonna think like, what does that guy do? But we're just gonna read through this stuff, and for the most part, you just listen and enjoy it, and maybe make a few notes here and there. And, had this been an actual recording session, you don't do such long bits, and we would give notes. And but I have to say, working with Tatiana and Alfredo and the team, these sessions were really smooth and fun, and we kind of got to be spectators in real time in the studio. So it it'll be probably a lot like that.
Fantastic. Well, okay. Before we dive in, let me just quickly say that we will be trying to do this. We're aiming for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We'll see. It's a fairly long prequel story, and I guess it's going to depend on how picky Julian is with our pickups and having to retake lines and stuff. But
It's going to be about 4 hours.
We'll see in 4 hours, and after that, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. Hopefully, you'll get a chance to ask the crew some questions. So stick around for that. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be monitoring both on Twitch and on Steam. But right now, grab a drink, sit back, enjoy the ride, because we're about to be taken to theater, so to speak. All right, do you guys want to just take it away? Should we do this?
Yeah, I say you guys just dive in and let's read these letters.
Okay. April 21st, 1933. Dear Harry, nothing makes me happier than receiving one of your letters, not even waking up without fever, and taking into account that rare is the day I wake up feverless. Imagine how excited your letters make me feel. It amazes me that my old house in Newburyport is still standing. Despite how far away my childhood is now, I have so many beautiful memories of that house and that small coastal town. Did I ever talk to you about Grandpa Isaiah? You didn't get to know him. He died relatively young, and from the same disease that also took Mother. The same disease that I am suffering from now. Grandpa Isaiah was such a loving man. I used to sit on his lap and rest my head in his long white beard as he read fairy tales to me. It was also in that house where you met my mother, remember? She liked you so much. He's a good boy, Nora. You can see it in his eyes, she said. And if he hardly needs glasses, tell him not to wear them. He would look better without them. I'm so glad she lived to attend our wedding, even though she was very ill. Regarding the tiara you sent me in the photo, I think I have a vague memory of it as a child on a school trip to the Newburyport Historical Society. I believe that even back then I was shocked by its resemblance to the music box. That old broken thing. I don't know if my memory is playing tricks on me, but I swear I remember it played music once. As a child, I found it mesmerizing, and I even liked it. But since Mother died and bequeathed it to me, I loathe it. It only brings back hurtful memories of Mother's death and nightmares. I keep dreaming about that music box, even now that you've taken it away with you. Besides the nightmares, there's also the fatigue, and the fever comes and goes, as you know. It usually rises at noon, so as mornings tend to be more bearable, I try to spend them writing in my journal or taking a short stroll. And don't worry, I always carry the cane with me. Regarding your question, I think that if, as you comment, there are more tiara-like relics at Miskatonic University, it makes sense for you to head to Arkham. Take care of yourself and eat well. Love you, Nora. P.S. King takes king's knight pawn. Checkmate in 2.
All you, Yuri.
June 16th, 1933. Dear Nora, so glad to hear about your morning strolls. As long as you carry the cane with you and walk at a moderate pace, you have no reason to worry. I wish I could be there to walk arm in arm with you. I have met Henry Armitage, head of the Miskatonic Library. He is the kind of person I like to relate to, wise, thoughtful, and methodical, living the life I've always longed for, working at the university without having to deal with students. Although you always say that deep down I'm not that bad, and at the end of the school year, all my students think highly of Harry the Hermit, I guess you just always look kindly upon me. It is surprising how well versed Armitage is in archaeology and ancient history for a doctor of literature. Not only did he know about the Newburyport tiara, but he also has shown me the other relics they have on display at the university. He pointed out the coincidence of the golden high reliefs and the irregular shapes in both cases, and comments that these patterns are frequent in some structures on islands of Micronesia and French Polynesia. He also gave me a dossier with information on the culture and traditions of the South Pacific. While I was in Arkham, I took the chance to meet the doctor that the dermatologist who saw you in Denver recommended to us. This fella may be a real eminence in medicine, but My gosh, what an oddball. If I was guided by his appearance, I would have never hired him. Scruffy looks, greasy hair, unkempt beard. He's always wiping his sweat with a handkerchief. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, he also smokes like a chimney. I know that I smoke too and you hate it. But in my defense, I have to say that I smoke a pipe, which definitely gives me a stately and distinguished modern Sherlock Holmes look, so it is not the same thing at all. You didn't buy it, did you? Well, where were we? Jokes aside, the guy seemed fascinated when he saw the photo of the stains on your hand. Apparently, he is a specialist in skin disorders. He pointed out some similarities to genetic alterations and natural mutations of different fish species. He also mentioned their relationship to tribal tattoos that replicate those fish patterns. And guess where those tribes are? In the South Pacific. I know how strange this may sound, especially when Denver is probably the furthest you've ever traveled in your life, but I believe that the answer to your illness must be found somewhere in the Pacific. Anyway, if I'm going to organize an expedition, I'll need money. So I have no choice but to talk to my parents. I'm headed to the Everhard Manor in Boston, so wish me luck and patience. Love, Harry. P.S. King to King 4. And don't even dream of that checkmate in 2, you show-off.
Awesome. So that was great, you guys. And so we're moving into this back and forth conversation. And my only comment would be, Harry, when you say hello, Nora, you don't know where this conversation is going. So you get a little caught off guard. And then about halfway through, when you talk about your father taking the opportunity, his father, that's you just trying to be like, come on, you can cheer up. So you can have a little bit of a change there. But then down below, when you ask if he should come home, that's where you kind of just really get stern with it. And my only other comment would be that, so those narrations were awesome, but now you're talking, so you can have more of that, those kind of nonverbal things and little hesitance and sighs and just,
Okay.
talk on the phone.
All right.
Hello,
Hello, Nora.
Harry. What happened? How did it go?
Well, you know.
Oh, it didn't go well, did it?
I can't stand talking to him. She isn't much better either, but at least she doesn't use that condescending tone with me.
I'm sorry, my love. You know how they are.
Yes, I know them perfectly. All the more reason for not having come here.
Has your father taken the opportunity to remind you that you should never have married me?
No, I already warned him the last time we talked. I told him I wasn't going to tolerate that kind of comment. And if he said that one more time, he would never see me again.
I see. So, I assume they are not going to fund the expedition.
Of course not. But he took the opportunity to remind me that a university teacher's salary barely pays for doctor's bills. You should have graduated in law, Harrison. Thank you for the wise advice, Father.
Well, if your father hadn't forced you to study law, we may never have met.
Yes, that is true. Meeting you was the only good thing that came out of those 2 tedious years. At least I'm out of there. Every time I step on Everhard Manor, I feel I'm 6 years old and have just broken out Margaret's Chinese vase again.
Rich and Maddie always say the same thing. Donna is the only one still attached to your parents, but I think that's mostly because she is the younger sister.
Yes, you're right. My parents should put 2 and 2 together. If all your sons have fled from you like the plague, maybe you should consider that your parenting has been a total disaster.
Oh, Harry, I feel so sorry for you every time I hear you talk about your parents.
Don't worry about that, my love. There are more important things right now. I'll get the money for the expedition somehow. I don't know how exactly, but I'll find it, I swear.
Harry, why don't you come back home?
Forget it. I told you when I left. I will return with a cure, or I will not return at all.
Okay, take it easy, Douglas Fairbanks. I'm not going anywhere, and I'll be more pleased with you coming back in one piece, with or without a cure.
You are so good to me. What would I do without you, my dear old pal?
Probably you'd be living in a you'd be living on a porch sitting in a rocking chair with a loaded shotgun on your lap yelling, "You're trespassing!" to strangers. Listen, Harry, I trust you. Just go to sleep and don't think about it anymore. We'll find a way.
I love you so much, Nora.
I love you too, Harry.
Yes. Great. You guys are amazing.
The writing is amazing.
Yeah, it's just the
our job is so much easier when the writing is this good.
It's so fun to have to actually be able to react to
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
This is not representative of an actual recording session.
Yeah, exactly.
And I usually don't wear a tie.
Oh, yes, you do.
I always wear gloves.
Yeah, right. Just because it's cold in there.
Yeah.
That was great, you guys. Yeah, let's and so for this next one, my only comment would be this is a little bit more, not really serious, but it's a little more clinical. And I would just say to you, Cissy, just slow down a little bit on the letter.
Okay.
But come on, what can I honestly say? You guys have nailed it.
July 20, 1933. Dear Harry, I still feel really bad about what you had to go through with your parents. You know I've never meddled in the disputes between you and them, mostly because you know that I rather keep my mouth shut if I don't have anything nice to say of someone. I know they'll never accept that you married a middle-class girl, and I almost grow accustomed to it. What I will never be accustomed to is that they don't care about the well-being of their son. You always say the main reason why you don't want children is because you thought you'd be a terrible father, like yours. But let me tell you something, Harry. You are nothing like John Washington Everhart. Not even a little bit. And if it makes you feel better, I think you would make a wonderful father. Don't panic. I haven't changed my mind about having kids. I'm still terrified of passing this disease on to my children. Anyway, let's just move on, my love. So, the journalist is a woman. What a surprise. I don't know why, but when you mentioned that a journalist wanted to have a meeting with you, I immediately assumed she was a man. That's how society works, I guess. Remember that there were only 4 girls in your class year at law. Arts had a little more women, but most students in Boston University were men. Honestly, I hope that changes one day, and we won't find it strange that women can do as many relevant things as men. I wonder how she knew you were back in the city. I guess that the return of an Everhart family member to Boston must be hot news, not only for the high society of the city, but for all the gossip press. But you say she's not into gossip, right? She's an investigative journalist at the Boston Herald. And she not only knew about the Newburyport tiara, but she covered it when the exposition came to Boston. What a coincidence. I never heard of either of those news items she mentioned to you, though. I think I remember reading something about a riot in Innsmouth a few years ago, but the FBI raiding a fishing village? That sounds like tabloid news to me, Harry. Anyway, she definitely looks resourceful. And who knows? Maybe the money that your parents refused to give you can be obtained through that society that she's talking about. And if that doesn't work, I'm sure there'll be another way. There's always a way, old pal. With love, Nora. P.S. Pawn to King's Rook 5. Checkmate in 1.
Nice. Take
September.
it away.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. September 1, 1933. Dear Nora, It has always seemed to me that there is something disturbing in this city. I find it hard to explain what it is, but despite how weird this place feels sometimes, I also think it would be the perfect place for a crank like me. I could spend hours in the Providence Athenaeum. It's a shame that this city has this terrible weather. The journalist arranged a meeting with the president of the Starry Wisdom Society, a certain Caleb Bowen. These people pretend to be an astronomical society, but I recognize the stench of an occultist circle for miles. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was a child, Everhard Manor was full of mediums, psychics, fortune tellers, and all sorts of nut jobs. Mother was into all that supernatural crap for years and held a seance almost weekly. Fortunately, Father put an end to that nonsense when he found out. One of the few good things he did for our family. I wouldn't have a problem with these people's mystic kook talk, other than a waste of time, if it wasn't for the fact that they season their supernatural baloney with a nice dose of eugenics and race supremacism. Some of the things that Bowen fella said sounded straight out of a Hitler speech. I find them abhorrent. They offered to finance the expedition, but I, of course, declined. I don't see myself leading the loony crusade for a bunch of Nazi sympathizers. I have enough already traveling with Madam Mystery, the journalist, and Dr. Jekyll. I still have to decide what kind of freak I am. The only good thing I got from that meeting was that I acquired a very peculiar piece of equipment. It's a strange optical machine made by a scientist named Tillinghast, apparently for some sort of glasses he intended to market. It didn't go well, apparently. The guy died, poor as a church mouse, I think, and he never managed to sell his doohickey. Although the machine was broken, it was so dirt cheap that it piqued my interest. When I return to Englewood, maybe we can mess around with it and see if we can make it work. Sounds like a fun evening plan, right? Anyway, the journalist doesn't seem to be too worried about getting funding for the expedition. She says we'll find a way. I have a hunch with the next meeting that I have tomorrow. So if everything goes as planned, San Francisco should be our next stop before setting sail to the Pacific. We are really close, Nora. So close. I love you. Harry. P.S. King to King's Bishop 4. Oh, crap.
Great. That's great, you guys. It's just awesome. So this final conversation, this is something that we, no one's gotten to see this yet, and this one is really, it's much more indicative of your relationship, and it's a lot more casual at times. So you guys can really just, fall into that. But just like Yuri, when you were talking in the letter about the machine that you had, you kind of have this, no matter what state you're in, you're still always thinking about, you've got to cure this woman that's the love of your life. And so down toward the bottom of this conversation, there's a part where there's a mechanic getting the car going, and it just kind of takes you instantly out of the conversation and back to your mission. Like, I've got to save her. And so you kind of have this, almost half listening at that point. And then Nora, Cissy, you are, you're like, hey, what's going on over there? I thought we were having a conversation, but because it just kind of shows how Harry is really dedicated to the cause of getting on this trip. So do your thing.
Okay.
Hello.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love sent to me. Come on, Nora. A partridge in a pear tree.
Oh my goodness, Harry Scrooge is embodied by the spirits of Christmas. 2 weeks in advance. Where are you, old pal?
Our car engine was faulty, so we had to stop. I took the chance to have a coffee because I was falling asleep at the wheel. I'm not sure what state we're in. Mississippi or Arkansas, it doesn't matter. It still is the middle of nowhere.
Oh, hey, city slicker. Show some respect for those of us who grew up in rural, hard-working America.
Oh, excuse me. On the second day of Christmas, my true love sent to me.
You didn't take advantage of the prohibition ending a week ago, did you?
You know I don't drink, ma'am. It's just my natural joy de vivre. Or maybe the coffee is kicking in. Or maybe there is some other thing.
Oh?
We have the money, Nora. The Boston Herald is funding the expedition.
Really?
Yes. That journalist really earned her place in the expedition, I'll tell you. She is really a resourceful woman. Kind of reminds me of you.
Oh, should I be worried, Casanova Earhart?
Not at all, ma'am. Mainly for two reasons. First, I prefer blondes.
That's a good reason. And the second one?
The second is that I am an antisocial curmudgeon and I hate dealing with people.
Well, you've got that one right, Harry the Hermit.
Really? You did manage to make it work? That fast?
Harry, who are you talking to?
I'm sorry, sweetheart. It's the mechanic. Just a second. You're a whiz, mister. Wouldn't you be interested by any chance in an exciting job opportunity in the Pacific? Well, that was quick. I have to go now, Nora. I'll call you as soon as I get to the West Coast.
I'll be waiting for your call, handsome. Drive with care.
Don't worry. I'll take care. Merry Christmas, gorgeous. I love you.
We're still 2 weeks ahead, but Merry Christmas, my love.
That was so good, you guys. That was great. We were recording, right?
We're rolling on that. I am.
I should start now.
Right.
Great. Yeah, it's just so fun to listen to you guys back and forth. So the only thing, and I'll just say, Yuri, is towards the end of yours, you get to San Francisco and they're talking about the Golden Gate, so that can be a fun moment. Like, oh my gosh. But just keep on going. This is be fun to listen to.
January 19, 1934. My dear old pal. Today I woke up with a high fever, and you know I always tend to get too sentimental when I'm not feeling well. That's why I decided to open this letter with our term of endearment. I know it's sickly sweet and even a little bit silly, but it means a lot to me. Remember when we slow danced, dear old pal of mine, at that party at your sister Maddie's house? I'll never forget that night. We were celebrating the end of the Great War. It was our first dance, and our first kiss. Though I almost had to drag you to dance with me, you dull, boring man. I'm so glad I already knew the way you were when we started dating. When I fell in love with my grumpy old pal, Harry, I knew I was falling in love with a real person, not with some Prince Charming facade. That's why I find all your imperfections, all your obsessions, and even all your eccentricities so sweet. I'm getting silly again. Must be the fever rising. And why am I being so sweet when you're planning to a detour to Hollywood, you lucky scoundrel? That is not a detour, it's a pleasure trip. Do you really expect me to believe that the last member of your expedition is a Hollywood stuntman who happens to be a friend of that magic mechanic you knew in Mississippi? I'm kidding, of course. I'm glad someone could help you out with that flat tire in the middle of the road. What I don't want to even know is how much money you had to offer that mechanic, so he agreed to go with you on the expedition. But if, as you say, he's not only fixed your car in record time, but has also managed to repair the lens machine, well, then he must deserve every cent of whatever you must be paying him. Back to that Hollywood detour. How I would love to be there with you. I'm so much into movies. Do you remember when we saw 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in the Orpheum Theatre? Oh, don't forget to ask that stuntman if he's been in any box office hit movies. And ask him if he's met any famous actors. Clark Gable, Greta Garbo, one of the Barrymores, maybe. Oh, my. I think I've spent my remaining strength in writing this letter to you. Now I'm feeling faint. I'll go back to bed now. I miss you so much, my love. Nora. P.S. In another vein, Bishop to Queen 4. Checkmate. You lost again.
February 1934. My dear old pal, as you can see, I liked your header so much that I've decided to. Did I ever tell you that a colleague in the history department once heard me talking to you on the phone? And though thought you were actually an old friend, he was so puzzled by the old pal thing that when I explained it to him, he actually asked me if we were married. I swear that when you fully recover, I will take a leave of absence from the university and we will travel around the world together, my love. Europe, Asia, Australia, you name it. In the meantime, I'm sending you a book about the area we'll be traveling to. It won't be like being there with me, but at least you'll have a clearer picture of where I am. And according to what the bookstore owner told me, this Gifford Patchett fella is one of the greatest experts in Pacific Islands traditions and culture. Just a few quick notes on that Hollywood stuntman. The man, who, by the way, goes by a cowboy name that I honestly doubt is his real name, is insufferable. I've had to explain to him a couple of times that real archaeology is never like the movies, but I don't think he gets the idea. I believe he has seen King Kong too many times. Oh, and his favorite subject is detailing all his romances with Hollywood celebrities. I think Sarah Bernhardt may be the only missing actress in his love affair list. We arrived in San Francisco yesterday, and they're building a massive bridge here, Nora. You probably wouldn't appreciate it in the picture, but this thing is going to be huge when it's finished. However, no matter in which season you come to this city, it always has this miserable weather. I believe it has something to do with a current that starts in British Columbia and ends in Mexico, but shouldn't that make San Francisco hotter rather than colder? I know you already know it, but let me say it again. I really, really, really hate cold weather. I still have to find a few things about the specific location I'm headed to, but if the research I've done is correct, it will be someplace in the heart of the Pacific. We'll be embarking on a journey in a couple days, so it'll take me a few weeks at sea. But I will write again as soon as I arrive at my destination, I swear. Just remember, Nora Everhart, you are my love, my life, my wife, my partner, my best friend. You are everything to me. Love you. Harry. P.S. About our chess game, my final statement is that you obviously cheated, so this game is not valid.
Awesome job. That was great. It's so fun to be able to just flow like this too, because as you guys know, it's much more fragmented
Yeah.
in real life.
Yeah.
But yeah, and really nice job.
Thank you. Nice, Julian.
It's so fun to watch you work. I've never, obviously we've shared titles together, but I've never seen you work. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's this is I love it. I love it. I hope we get to do more.
Lovely. Well, that was the prequel story then for Call of the Sea. Coming out December 8th, the full game. Got a wish list now on Steam. Check it out on Xbox. It's coming December 8th. And I was expecting that to take a lot longer than it did. We just ran through a pretty big script. Pretty quick.
Well, that was just the rehearsal. Julian's going to give us notes now, and we're going to do it again 3 or 4 more.
We're just going to do a line at a time.
Row each letter.
3 in a row.
Now with feeling, is that that's the professional?
No, exactly.
Cool.
Once more with feeling.
The funny thing is that you can see how they just, they waver in energy levels and adding little nonverbal things or kind of tweaking the text as they go, and it just really, those are the things that really make it special, and that's why it's great to work with you guys. Like, you just have a great sense of that, and also just working on a title that's a period piece. sometimes figuring out the wording that doesn't sound as modern. And sometimes you have to play with words to get them to flow out right. And Tatiana and Alfredo were great about giving a little leeway for that. And you know, it just, the great thing is that there were some letters in the game and they allowed us to do these types of things, but then that what we got from doing those transferred over to, you know, all the single lines. And with Cissy, whenever you have a game where there's a lot of looking around and a lot of, you know, it's a door that's locked.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you just need to, yeah, interesting. It's a challenge because the player, you know, we're taking it in one line at a time or like one level at a time, and the player's playing this, and you really have to watch that dynamic of how your, you know, of your not pronunciation, but your projection. So every line is not the same, you know, and Cissy, you did a great job doing that. We always had this kind of wavering bar of projection. And I think just based on some of the other things we worked on that were similar, that was just really impressive to me.
Thank you. Well,
Absolutely
it helped
lovely.
to have good writing and good direction behind it, of course. I love all the Easter eggs about, like, you know, the Golden Gate Bridge being built, and even the song. You know, I didn't realize that there was a song called "My Dear Old Pal," or "Dear Old Pal."
Do you want me to fire it up in the background? I have it on an old 78
Is it on Spotify?
on my gramophone.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
Here,
Cissy,
I'll
one
put
of
it
your
on the
requests, one of your requests was you're not going to do any singing on stream, right? So, because
Well,
Oh yeah, I'll put it on so we don't have to sing. I'll be
Yeah,
right
right.
back.
oh, perfect.
saying 12 Days of Christmas, okay?
That's true.
I love that Yuri works from a SpaceX capsule.
It looks high tech. He's got his
You
little
know.
buddies in the background. It's
I
cool,
love
it's
it.
cool.
All the zero gravity pals back there.
That's going to make Gavin nervous.
Yeah, it's
And-
okay.
And
Yeah,
so,
he's-
speaking of the writing as well, if anyone wants to read the letters that we just went through some of those, and you can read some of the other ones, calloftheseagame.com/blog. You can go read them. You won't be able to hear them the way we just did, but you can read them. That's lovely. And I wanted to quickly ask you all a question, I suppose, and it's from the Steam chat. What kind of materials do actors receive in order to get to know the character? And I love that we have some background music for this one.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
can hear it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. It is
Lovely.
literally playing on a gramophone from 1908.
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's.
That's awesome.
I had to crank it up to play it for you guys. But it'll be
appropriate for
great,
that.
you know, when the zombie apocalypse comes and all the power goes out, I'll still be able to listen. To stuff.
Perfect.
And apparently the power goes out all the time now.
Yeah, apparently.
Party Furies Zombie Apocalypse.
Yeah, I know my own personal zombie apocalypse. You know, every game provides different things at different stages. I have found, you know, that you might get a little bit for an audition, or you might get nothing with the line. Sometimes you'll get some artwork for the character, and then if you're cast, hopefully they give you, that's the point at which they start giving you more information. For this, game, it was nice to already have, some of the game was already done. I got to, see some of what the game looked like. And then we talked about it a lot. I mean, that's always the most important thing for me. If I can talk to writers and producers to, really find out what it is, what the background is and what they're looking for in the character. And, that always helps. And, letters and, any kind of background material. I mean, it was great. The material we were reading was all the background material I would generally hope for and never get for a character. And it was literally what we were doing was that. So I don't know. I mean, you got involved at a different point, and your character is in a different place than mine. Cissy, what was useful for you? Oh yeah, there it is.
There's that note.
Yikes.
Perfect.
For me, I really wanted to make sure I had her accent right. So I went back and I studied a lot of old videos of Eleanor Roosevelt and Katharine Hepburn, and they were obviously from that era, and they had the transatlantic accent, but they were very confident in who they were as people. And I knew that Nora was going to be a little more reserved and insecure, for lack of a better word, just because she has this illness that is taking her husband away from her. So I wanted to infuse that beautiful, old-timey accent with a little bit of reservedness about her. So that was kind of my whole goal with her accent. And in terms of character, like Julian said, there's a lot of like, wow, look at this. This is interesting. Or what does this do? Or, I wonder what I'm supposed to do here. So it was making sure that, you approach that from a real person and not just a piece of black and white writing on a paper, and making it interesting to me so that hopefully it's interesting to player as people are playing the game. But then also making sure that this is comes across as like a real marriage. This is not just like some like new puppy love infatuation type of thing. This is a I think Tatiana said it best in an interview where she said it's a mature love, with two people who respect one another and care about one another and will literally go to the ends of the earth for each other. And you don't get to see that very often in games. And so it was really fun to play that.
Well, and it's where the going is getting tough now. It's not the puppy love you talked about. And but I also think
stuff.
because it's so easy to be married. Yeah. The thing you said about the accent too, Cissy, and I know you and I talked about it leading up to the sessions, and we've worked on some projects where you've had a variety of accents, and I kind of feel like this just generally with accents is, if it is your accent, that's one thing, but if you're creating an act, if you're creating this sound, you don't want it to be as much of the focus. You want it to just be something that adds to your character. And it was just, it's funny because like Yuri, there's that classic sound you think of when you hear things from the 20s and 30s, and you just turned into that guy. It was great.
Look, I'm the guy who owns a crank up Victrola. Like this is clearly something that I love.
Totally. Yeah, it was great. And it just hearing these conversations too, that they're new to all of us. And it was great. And a lot of this was like Yuri said about reading the letters and kind of getting the backstory and the info on the characters was the job of you were reading that stuff in real time. And a lot of it was just literally the first take. And the only things we kind of did alts on were sometimes the wording, but let's try one where you're a little bit more despondent, or it's a sad take, but that fresh take was really almost always the one.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear as well from Yuri and Cissy, if you could maybe describe your characters. I'd just love to hear like your take on who Harry is and who Nora is.
You'll
go
after it.
I mean, I don't want to. You'll get to know them in the game, but I think if Harry hadn't met Nora, he'd just be a lonely, like a lonely scholar in the university.
Curmudgeon.
Yeah, lonely curmudgeonly, scholar in the university. And I think, he was so lucky to have found her. And then I think if she hadn't gotten sick, he never would have, done anything exciting in his life. But her as, a person, and then her becoming sick pushed him out into a world that he never would have. I think Harry owes Nora, everything, for better or for worse. I think that's who he would have been without her. And that's what's magical, about stories and about games, is you get to, see something that's out of the ordinary, that isn't just and I think that was, his experience as well. This is his great story, was, going off to save his wife.
Yeah. And I think on the other side of that coin, 1930s was a time when women were not going off on expeditions alone, and they were not, adventurous. They were not solo. And they were just kind of, if they were sick, they were just kind of relegated to the corner and left alone. And so not only to find a love in Harry as someone who respected her as an equal, but also for her, when he does go missing, that she just goes, she goes after him because it's the love of her life. But again, like, we in 2020, like, no one would bat an eye about a woman going on an expedition like this to find her husband, but in the 30s, that's a big deal. And so for her to have the chutzpah to get after it, that's that really kind of informed me the transformation in who she was to who she becomes, because who she was, I think, was very societally meek. Obviously in her marriage, she had a confidence and that existed between her and Harry. But I think in society, she was probably shy, probably kept to the corner. She and Harry, if they hadn't found each other, would have been hermits each for the rest of their lives, But then when she decides to go on this mission to find Harry, I think it's a turning point in her finding the confidence in herself to go do what needs to be done and to not be relegated to the corner, because nobody puts Norah in the corner. But
especially not in chess, apparently.
Right. But yeah, I think it's interesting too, as she goes through the game and solves more of the puzzles, she becomes more confident, and she one of my favorite quotes is that it's her rise to sanity instead of her descent into madness, which I hold on to in a lot of these really dark times.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In the game, you definitely it gets quite, you get into some real it's not just puzzles, your journey is definitely has a great arc to it.
Yeah, I think, Tatiana, you've created such a masterpiece. Like, I love the characters, I love the world, I love the missions, I love what you've made here, and I hope we've done it justice.
No, I think thank you so much, and it's because you both have made a fantastic work, giving the voice to these characters, bringing them alive. So I'm a bit speechless after watching you performing the characters. So it has been amazing, and thank you so much for being part of this project. And it's not only me, but all the team at Out of the Blue that is thankful to your work. So thank you so much.
Well, I just as an aside, but related, I've been in love with the world and the stories that H.P. Lovecraft created since high school, and so to get to work on a project like this that that dips into that and dips into that world was for me a dream come true, really. So thank you for allowing me to play in that world with these people.
When I called Yuri, I was like, okay, so this is the game. It's, kind of based, do you know H.P. Lovecraft? And he was like, let me show you my bookshelf. And there's like a whole, like, ask me.
It's amazing.
Right.
They can pay me in
sand. At that point I said, I'm in. Whatever you say next doesn't matter because I'm in.
Yeah, it was great.
Speaking of the story, Tatiana, like, what inspired Call of the Sea? How did this thing come about?
Yeah, I think at the team we are huge fans of the classic adventure games. We also wanted to portray some the classic adventures, but also like in the sense of Indiana Jones, those movies that are about exploring a world or a mystery in an abandoned place, ruins, that kind of things from the movies we have grown with. Yeah, and we are also very huge fans of the works of H.P. Lovecraft, so we wanted to mix everything together. And instead of doing like a story that was the kind of things that you usually see, we wanted to give it a twist. So we wanted to make it different. we wanted to make, as Cissy said before, is instead of a descent into madness, it's like a rise to sanity. So it's a Lovecraft with a twist. So we hope the people is going to enjoy it.
Lovely, lovely. Yes, December 8th. It's coming up soon. It's coming up. So, Julian, I want to ask you as well, because you mentioned normally in voice acting sessions you might go through things a little more line by line. Would you like to maybe talk about how this kind of stuff normally goes down? Because what we just did was an absolute masterclass in running through a script flawlessly. And I'd love to just talk a little bit about how the process of recording voiceover normally looks for a game.
Well, that's not how it looks. I can tell you that. Actually, it is how it looks for those letters. That's pretty common. And, there might have been moments where you, like Cissy, when you're reading and Nora's talking about feeling faint, we might go back and say, just hit those last few paragraphs and sound a little more tired and sigh,
I heard that as soon as I read the words. I'm feeling that. It's like,
oh, I should have sighed. And I
always.
Yeah, always sigh. What's funny is you did sigh in a place where I had little red notes on mine and I added a sigh and you sighed and it was like, yeah, we're on the same page here. But honestly, for a lot of times it's a line at a time, or like a run of lines. And ensemble recordings are great. And that's when two or more people are in the studio. Logistically, it can be really difficult. And so, on a lot of the Walking Dead projects, the person they were acting against was me. And I would read the feeders in as much of the character as I could.
I have some great Julian lines.
It's pretty funny. Thank God they didn't record that. But the thing is that it was great working on this with Tatiana and Alfredo because it was very collaborative. So what we would do is establish, what's the scene? What are they tired? Are they scared? And a lot of times the person that is the feeding line hasn't recorded yet. So it was really important for the actor, for me to be mimicking who they're talking with as closely as possible. So you can't have any shame or ego if that's going to happen because you make a fool of yourself. But and I can't act, so
Lies.
No. But anyway, yeah. And so, but then what we've also done is I have a system where I can, if someone has been recorded, I can play the feeding lines. And that just is magical because it literally, it gives you that ensemble like quality without all the pain that goes into that. And when I say it's logistics are a nightmare, because a lot of times, you book people on set sessions. And so Yuri and Cissy may have 10 lines together and then 300 on their own. And so it's really hard to schedule those. And it's just kind of it's just a function of the system. But yeah, and I, one of the things for this game is I got to play the game before we started recording. And you'll see when you play it that it's just so immersive and the world is so awesome. And Tatiana talking about Indiana Jones and like that type of fantastical, expedition. It really took playing it. And I think, and Cissy, you played it some too. We had videos of it. And it just really gets you in the place like, okay, I know where the voice has to sit. Because I know what the player is going to be experiencing.
Well, and being able to see that world that you created, I mean, it's so gorgeous. And so it wasn't a stretch to be odd in a line where I'm supposed to be odd, just looking around in the gameplay, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
It reminds me a lot of the games that I used to love playing. I mean, all the way back to text adventure games, the Infocom games, which I love.
Yeah.
As far as exploring the world goes, But playing Myst, like when Myst came out, I was like, oh,
The best.
this is what's possible. And then I felt that again when I first started seeing this. And so once again, hitting me in my sweet spot, like you guys kept doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So now you know the trick to getting Yuri on board your project.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, totally. I just think adventure games and like narrative story games, they're just the best.
That's all I play now, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. Yeah.
Excellent. I'd love to talk a little bit about
playing those text games. Like this is just all those things we had in our heads when we were playing those. Now we're watching it, and it's just
it's magic.
Nothing's changed up here. It's just what we see and experience is so much better.
Definitely. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how you get into character for Harry and Norah. And I mean, obviously it's been mandatory for you to dress up as the characters. The chat has realized that there seems to be a bit of cosplaying going on.
By the way, there's no glass. Literally. Yeah.
It's New Girl.
I'm like, because Nora doesn't have glasses, so I'm like, what's the word? So stumbled a few times. Whatever.
That was like surprisingly creepy. But
sorry about
into
that.
the eyes. But how did you find these voices? Maybe Cissy, would you like to start? Just how you mentioned the transatlantic accent and things like this, but how did you find this character?
I mean, it's kind of what I was saying before. Obviously accent, but also understanding where she comes from a psychological standpoint. She is very shy. She has found a playfulness with Harry that I don't think she has with anybody else. And so existing in the world, maybe speaking with other people is a very different experience than speaking with Harry. And even talking to herself, I think she's really hard on herself, because it's because of her that Harry's gone, and then that he's gone missing, and then that she has to go on this thing. So, I think there's a part of her that's just really hard on herself. But when Harry's around, or when she's reading a letter or responding to something from him, it's much more playful and filled with life and love than any other situation in her existence. So that kind of informed who she was. She's just a woman figuring out herself, honestly. That doesn't help you much know about the voice.
But great.
Well, I mean, what's the trick with the accent, for example? I'd love to just hear, like, how do you do that?
Well, like I said, I'm kind of a mimicker. Julian can speak to this. So my first job ever was working with Julian as Katya from The Walking Dead, with the Belgian accent. So I've always been a mimicker. And as soon as I can hear an accent, it's usually easy-ish for me to slip into it. But what I wanted to make sure I did with her was not go into British. And so there are certain things with the transatlantic, especially when you listen to Eleanor Roosevelt or Katharine Hepburn or other starlets from those days, but things like everything, the Y is kind of a eh, so it's everything, and Harry, it's not Harry, it's Harry.
Yeah.
And it's finding little things like that you can hold on to as you're reading, and also knowing that the intrusive R still exists, which is a fun one. So if a word ends in R and then the next word starts with a vowel, then the R carries over. But if the next word starts with a consonant, then it's kind of left as an ah, like never or never again. So the R will carry through into again or not if it's a consonant. So it's just keeping things like that in mind as I read through a script. And there were times when Julian was like, accent.
Yeah, or I'd say, I just heard Cissy, bring Norah back.
But yeah, it was, just part of the fun of this job.
Love it. And what about you, Yuri? How do you get into Harry? Like, what's the trick here?
I mean, it was very much the voice, finding that voice that, that I hear on old radio shows and things like that, puts me right there. And because I love, stuff like that, and I loved it for so long, and I've been listening to old radio shows forever. It came pretty easily, although I had to be careful not to slip into, like, there were little things that I wanted to put in there, but I I didn't want to become Humphrey Bogart or anything. So, I couldn't quite let myself go there. But it was, much like Cissy said, it's I think, sometimes for me, especially the voice, the accent, if there is an accent, then that is a huge key into the character for me. So as soon as I knew where we were, and but it's interesting because as the game goes on, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but he's much more out of his element. He's not a people person. He is forced to work with people, and I don't think socially, I don't think he always does very well. And under stressful situations, I think a lot of his social graces go out the window because he's struggling struggling with the situation and with the people and the massive amount of stress that he's under. So it was interesting to sort of find the places where, because I generally like, I'm a nice guy. I don't like not being nice. And for Harry to lose that was a challenge, but I think was also important to the character at that time in the story. So thanks, Julian, for keeping me on the,
Well, I know which part you're talking about too, and when it gets really frustrating and things are really, not going your way, but you totally maintain, though, like the accent never changed. You just had this way of, like, you got more stuttery and frustrated, and you could just hear what was going on there. And it was really, it's always fun when you have wide swings of context, it's not always the same type of delivery, and that was really fun.
I think also, if I may add, there's a certain Lovecraft book that I read to get ready for this, and the whole book can be explained just in the emotions that the main character goes through. And so, acting through a thing, keeping in mind the emotion is key, right? And so is this fear? Is this intrigue? Is this acceptance? Is this terror? Is this curiosity? And keeping those in mind as you go through this project, which we also got to record chronologically, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's like, here's the ending on the first day.
Yeah.
But being able to do it chronologically and keep those emotions in mind as she goes on this journey is immensely helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Cissy, because I thought of that earlier, that a lot of times, like with a game like a Walking Dead or something, there's some very vocally challenging scenes. There's tender scenes, yeah, and yeah, like, okay, now your arm's getting ripped off, and
Spoilers.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, but this one, yeah, it really, it's not anything we ever really talked about. It just, we did it chronologically, and we were finding out about the game kind of in real time, and it is great because it gives you this, it just, you're developing it in, over time. And we had a number of sessions, there's always pickup sessions, and my light keeps getting brighter here. It's like, I think there's a spirit here. But yeah, it was really great, and the last few sessions were, especially the final ones, were great because there's just a lot of fun stuff that happens at the end, and I think people will like it.
I know I keep wanting to like say specific things, but I'm like, no, I want them to find that out when you find it out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to maybe stray away from this topic before we accidentally spoil something.
Right, I know.
I mean, it's quite the journey. Call of the Sea. It comes out December 8th. Wishlist now. I mean, I think before, okay, we got a little more time. If there are any final questions in the chat, feel free to drop those on Twitch or Steam. We'll try to get to them. But man, there was something I was going to ask, and now it's completely gone. It's gone. I don't know what I was going to ask. Well, I did. Okay, this is potentially going to get us into spoilery territory, so let's try to avoid it. But do you have a favorite moment working on Call of the Sea? And I realize that I'm totally opening up the door here for, yes, the ending when this thing happens and that. But is there like a favorite moment of yours working on this game? This is for everyone, by the way.
I can't talk about have a bunch of favorite moments. I can't talk about some of them as you say, but the moment that it's not every day that you get a call from somebody saying, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this?" There's usually this long process during which most of the times you don't get to work on the thing that you're trying to work with. You're trying to work on. So to get the call from Cissy, basically saying, "Hey, I would like to bring you into this," that was one of my favorites. And then you guys today was one of my favorites.
Truly.
Yeah,
right.
I agree. This is great.
We never get to do stuff like this. Like usually, listen, I love working in games. Games are amazing, but it's usually under such a tight NDA. It's like if you say anything about this game to anybody, you can say goodbye to your firstborn.
And maybe your second.
What kind of NDAs are you signing? That's harsh.
Well,
I thought we're normal.
If
For
you
life, man.
a fake name, it'll be like Project Bookshelf, and we don't know the name of the thing, right? And so not only to know the thing, but to be able to say we're in the thing and to do something like this where we get to have playtime, like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It never happens. We're always just in our own little booths by ourselves, and the thing comes
Can you
out
do Thursday? Yeah, noon sounds good.
Great.
We got a lot
Right.
of lines to get through.
Yeah.
This has been really, really incredible. And as Yuri was saying, when I got the call from Susie and she told me about the parameters of the game and that it was made by this incredible female dev and the storyline and everything else, like, okay, yes, all the yes.
Yeah, Tatiana, you definitely you have such a clear vision of what this is, and it was always evident in our part of it, which is the voice part. I'm sure it extended into the visuals and the sounds, but it was great because it's always nice to have that kind of clear sense of the road you're on, and then you can take all these little side paths, but you kind of have to have that vision in place, and that was really great. It's comforting.
Yeah. And I think, there are so many times where, and I think Yuri can attest to this as well, where, you could share 100 credits with a person and it'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm in that too. All right, rad. But this is special. These are people that I love dearly. And I'm really happy that it's gone the way that it has. And I can't wait to do more stuff together.
You're making me cry. Thank you so much. It means a lot for us. Really, really. I mean, as I said, I couldn't have done it myself. Is because the people at Out of the Blue is amazing, and everybody has put their soul into this game. So I think it shows. So I don't know. You have left me speechless. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Yuri would always say after a take where everyone was speechless, he would always say, "Well, I've done my job."
Perfect. So we're gonna do a question from chat here. This is from Boys Games, and they're asking the 2020 question, right? Like it's a special year where we're all going through a bit of quarantine, things like this, and they're curious. What's it been like recording while in quarantine? And do you have any pro tips for recording VO from inside your home studios and or closets?
Get it decked out. I've had a booth for 10 years. Yuri, I'm sure you have as well. So
actually, I was recording out of my closet till about 2 or 3 years ago. This new SpaceX booth is still fairly new. So I'm definitely a proponent of the closet. Closets work.
Yeah.
Mine's a closet.
Honestly, yeah. If it's all about your when you're performing, you want your voice to hit the most absorptive material, because if you're facing like a monitor, it's bouncing out, and you can see around me it's not completely deadened, but the closet is, you slide the clothes apart and you sit sideways. You'd be amazed at how great that
totally
is.
Natural.
Yeah, it's real natural. So that's where that jacket is. But the other thing too is a shotgun mic is a lot more forgiving for if your space is less than that.
This
I know
is-
what you have. I see it. I have
Just
mine
making
right
sure.
here. But the problem with them,
Yeah, mine's just poking up out of the way.
yeah, they just, you know, they cancel out a lot of the side signal, and they're starting to be, well, not starting to be, they're definitely kind of a mainstay now. And you know, as far as recording remotely, I personally have been doing it remotely for a really long time. And it was about midway through Walking Dead season 2, we started kind of it just went to a remote model because for me, I love hanging out with everyone in person, but scheduling and you know, there's a lot of things that come into play. Then for Wolf Among Us, we had a ton of people in the UK. Game of Thrones was all over the world, so unfortunately they didn't want me to go to all those places. But so yeah, I mean, from my side of it, you know, my job is to get the voice down, and so just hearing sometimes, a lot of times I'll just kind of, you know, stare at my keyboard and listen. So it's really not a lot of difference for me, but I have noticed that a lot of projects now, when you're casting, it's like home booth preferred, and it also
Yeah.
gives actors a lot of flexibility with schedule. And if it's a, you know, if it's a smaller project, and you have the time flexibility, then you know it's a
means
lot easier.
We're not commuting from Santa Monica to
Yeah.
Burbank.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is so fun
3
without
hours
the
is a long time
helicopter.
a day.
Yeah, we've had to up
Yeah.
our game, but it made it possible. Like, I mean, think about how many other, you know, workflows were broken with, you know, with people not being able to get together, and that this was something that we were able to do is I'm very thankful for.
Yeah. Well, and as
Yeah.
you heard today, we did the back and forth. So this could have been that ensemble thing, and you did it for Firewatch, Cissy, and that was pre-COVID. So yeah,
Literally recorded Firewatch in this booth.
Yeah.
Or closet, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I will say though, I miss studios for the sheer fact that I am not a trained engineer. And the
Yeah.
other day, I swear to God, there was like a solar flare going through my house or something where every piece of electronics in my house just died. Like my internet went down, my monitor stopped working, my phone was jacked up, my computer was crapped. And I was like, okay, this is why we need studios.
yeah. Plus the food and the drinks are great.
Right. And I like hugging people.
I know.
Will we ever hug again?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll come soon.
Yeah.
Hugging, it will be back.
Here, Cissy.
Well, awesome. I think we're slowly running out of time here, so I think we're just gonna round it up. And I mean, Tatiana, Julian, Cissy, and Yuri, thank you so much for participating, for
Thank you.
doing the
Oh, this
live
is so
read
great.
of the prequel story of
This is
Call of
so
the Sea.
great.
It's been absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to hug you all because we are definitely overdue this year.
Yeah.
It's too long.
Yes.
Any
BBC. Oh,
final
maybe not.
words you want to say to the people watching at home or wherever they are, if they're in their closet or elsewhere?
I would love to hear what you think of the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
enjoy
play
the
the
game.
game.
It's gonna be great.
I can't wait to play the game. And thank you to you guys out of the blue and Raw Fury and just everybody in, you know, Bay Area, and you, Cissy,
You.
for inviting me into this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for going and getting the LP so we could hear what the original.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Fantastic.
That was part of my process.
Yeah.
Love it.
You got to get into character, man. That's how it is.
Methods.
So,
Right?
Call of the Sea coming December 8th to PC and Xbox. And can I put you on the spot, Yuri and Cissy? Could we do how would Harry and Norah say goodbye if they'd just been a part of a stream like this? And I want to start with Harry. And then we're just gonna tune out after that.
Technology is a marvelous thing. I never thought we'd be able to do something like this. But anything that would get me and you back together, Norah, my dear old pal, I'm definitely in favor of.
Oh, Harry, you're not such a hermit after all. I miss you, my love. It's good to see your face. Please continue to eat well. I love you.
I love you.
Cissy Jones and Yuri Lowenthal, everybody. Thank you so much, and thanks for everyone to tuning into the stream. We'll see you when Call of the Sea releases on December 8th. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You left a year ago to search for a cure for my affliction. An island in the middle of the Pacific that the locals refuse to even name. Your letters kept me close to you. But suddenly they stopped coming. What happened, Opal? What did you find?